Madam Chairman, thank you very much. This is the most interesting hearing on not just capital formation, but the development of small business IPOs and all the things that lend themselves to America's future. Madam Chairman, I'd like to ask unanimous consent to enter into the record a letter from Mr. Teague Egan, founder and CEO of Energy Explorations Technology, known as Energy X, where he talks about the future of American capital, strengthening public and private markets by increasing investor access and facilitating capital formation. I ask that please be entered in the record.
Without objection.
Madam Chairman, we heard from Andrew Barnell, who is from St. Louis, Missouri, where I used to live, know St. Louis pretty well, and he spoke about not just about the need for IPOs and new economic drivers for small business, but talked in his testimony to us about maybe being isolated in a market that was not as robust for raising money. So I would like to go, if I can, to Mrs. Pinedo and talk with her about, and I read in her bio about how she brings a lot of money from overseas to America, foreign financing that's here. I'd like to drill down on some of this because you talked about a balance that was necessary between private and public registered funds. But specifically, I'd like to talk about the role of engaging finders within the broker-dealer community, and we do legislation here. And if you have any ideas about exempting finders from registration, maybe in certain areas, but adding to this marketplace in cities that may be out of large investor areas. I'd like to ask you to please help us along that thinking, please.
The SEC has considered, and various advisory committees to the SEC have considered a finder's exemption and have suggested a framework for an exemption for finders for a number of years now. And the Small Business Forum that the SEC hosts every year has suggested and recommended that the SEC adopt a framework for finders. I think that a limited framework for finders from the exemption for registration from broker-dealers would be something that would be advisable. However, it should be a limited framework in light of the fact that we do have a need both at the state level and at the federal level to register persons who are providing services that are broker-dealer related. So I would look to the language that the Securities and Exchange Commission has considered previously in terms of the finder's exemption and the language that the advisory committees to the SEC have previously considered in terms of what would be appropriate by way of a finder's exemption. Along those lines, I would also consider adopting, finally, you brought up the topic of foreign activity, I would consider adopting or encouraging the SEC to undertake a study regarding adopting the amendments to 15A6, which are exemptions for foreign, for certain the activities by foreign broker-dealers for limited activities in the United States. These were amendments that were proposed by the SEC. They were well received generally by practitioners and by others, and they languish. And they relate largely to the activities of foreign broker-dealers with major institutional investors.
This is all, I think, good news, at least to me, because we found that there are people that want to over-regulate not only broker-dealers, they want to come in with other areas of government and hold people necessarily accountable about factors that were beyond their control, perhaps inflation, perhaps interest rate changes. So I think it's very important. I want to thank each of you for being here today. And I think, Madam Chairman, that gives us lots of room to work within a well-regarded idea. And I want to thank you for holding this hearing today, and I yield back my time.
Thank you. The